Welcome to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast, where we are building a community of people who are in the midst of midlife, sharing our stories and learning from each other along the way. Each week, I'll have a guest join me to discuss a topic that impacts our lives and touches on some aspect of midlife. We'll discuss relationships, transitions, health and well-being, parenting, careers, and more. My goal is to encourage and support you and help you thrive as you navigate this adventure of midlife. Join me here each week for the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast. Riley Mullane, welcome to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast.
What is going on? Thank you for having me, Nikki.
Well, I am so excited for you to be on this episode. When I was thinking about doing the Enneagram series, and I was thinking of a 3, you, of course, were the first person that came to mind because...
For better or worse, maybe.
As I say of my sister, she's the most 7-7 that ever
Yes, she
7'd,
is.
and you are probably one of the most 3s that ever 3'd. So and that is awesome. And we're going to talk about why that is here in just a second. But before we get into the episode, can you just introduce yourself to the listeners and just share about who you are and your family and what you do?
Well, I would say before I do that, I just want to congratulate you on
Thanks.
the consistency, the work you've been putting in. I said from the second I heard your podcast, number one, your voice is so soothing.
Thank you.
For anybody that is listening to this, I know they will agree. You have the perfect voice for a podcast.
Thank you.
So I'm just very proud of you.
Well,
Like
thanks.
truly, I am very,
That means a
very,
lot.
very proud of you.
Appreciate it.
So yeah, I am a father to soon to be 10-year-old twins,
Oh my
Isla and
gosh.
Asher, boy and a girl.
Can't believe it.
I really can't believe they're going to be 10, March 5th. That's coming right up.
Wow.
Husband to my beautiful wife, Melissa. We've been
Yes.
together since we were essentially 16 years old. So I've
long
gone through
time.
a lot of life together already. I'm very blessed to have her in my life. And she's, I mean, to say she's like the foundation and the rock of my life is still very much an understatement. I take a lot of pride in being the provider for our family. I think for anybody that is listening that's maybe the sole provider of the household, there's a level of responsibility and focus you have to have, and at times that can kind of shift things in a positive direction or sometimes a negative direction. So you have to kind of keep yourself in check there. That's a constant battle for me. And yeah, just somebody that loves to work. I love to see progress. I love to see progress not only in myself, but to see progress in the people that I'm surrounded by. And yeah, just I'm very. I would say I'm an optimist for sure. Maybe sometimes a
agree with
blind
that.
optimist,
Well,
but sometimes
Sometimes you
blinded by
need to put
passion.
your blinders on because it's
Yeah.
easy to get into the negative if you don't have a little bit of that going on. So for sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. We know each other through my sister, Megan,
Yeah.
through the wedding industry. You have been a DJ for a really long time, probably what?
Yeah,
Close to 20
I've
years?
been in the wedding industry as a DJ for, I don't even know, 17 years,
Wow.
close to 18 years maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say
Long
that's
time.
the bulk of what I do and what I've done. And I've dabbled in a million other things in the wedding and event industry that brings a lot of fulfillment. But DJing, I think I would have to say I probably have another year, maybe 2 left in the tank.
Well, it's been fun to work with you and in the different things we've been involved with together. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad we've got to know each other. We can thank Megan for that, I suppose, right? But I really appreciate you being on, and everything that you shared today is absolutely true about yourself. And so one of the great things I think about the Enneagram, and you've known about it for a little bit, is it just helps you to understand yourself better and others as well. The Enneagram, the most simplest terms, is just how we navigate through the world. Our type is the lens through which we view the world. And you are an Enneagram 3, which is the successful achiever.
Sounds so good on paper.
It does. And it is good. 3s are awesome. Everybody needs a 3 in their life. And we'll talk about why that is here in just a moment. But before we get into your experience with the Enneagram, I do want to go over the core motivations of a 3. So the core fear of a 3 is being exposed as or thought incompetent, inefficient, or worthless, failing to be or appear successful. The core desire of a 3 is having high status and respect, being admired, successful, and valuable. The core weakness of a 3 is deceit. So deceiving yourself into believing that you are only the image you present to others, embellishing the truth by putting on a polished persona for everyone, including yourself, to see and admire. And your core longing is that you are loved for simply being you. Not what you accomplish or what you do, but just for who you are as a person. So how did you first learn about the Enneagram, and what did you find interesting or fascinating about it when you first heard about it?
I believe I heard about the Enneagram from you. I think, and it was such a long time ago. And this was at a point where we were building our Ann and Ellis team, and we were doing more employee-based, when our business was more employee-based, if you will. We've pivoted and we've shifted a lot, but I believe you mentioned it or just said something in passing about, do you know your Enneagram? And I didn't know what that was, and so I went home and found the most legit test I could find, or quiz or survey or whatever you would define that. And I remember just telling myself, answer these questions very honestly. Like there's no reason not to, right? And so I did, and it came back as a 3. But I remember going through that survey, and it was very instinctive to answer honestly, because the answers are right in front of you, right? Like, oh, this is how I do. Oh, this is how I do it. This is how I do it.
Right.
And when that came back, and then I looked into, okay, Enneagram 3, what does that mean? And then you start to look into it, and you're like, oh yeah. And then the negative side of that's spot on. So that really excited me, because I think anytime you learn your Enneagram, the number one thing you want to do is tell other people, like, you should find out yours, you know?
Oh, I know. It's so exciting.
Especially for those that have no idea what it is.
Right.
I did the Strengths Finder.
Yeah. That's another great tool.
I can't remember what that was. I think I was very a futurist, and then something else, which kind of tied into the Enneagram. Like it made there was a lot of alignment there.
Yeah.
And then, just started to dive a little bit deeper into like what makes me tick, and why. You know, again, I think the Enneagram, I know the Enneagram explains the why, which is, I think everybody's looking for their why.
Yeah. Why do we do what we do?
Yeah. So I believe you brought it to my attention, and I'm very thankful for that. It makes a lot of sense that you're getting more and more and more into this, because you have such a great way of explaining the why. I think it's really easy to explain the what, but you do such a great job on elaborating the why.
The why. Exactly. And that's also something I want to make sure that everyone is really clear about with the Enneagram, because I think a lot of people get caught up into the behavior, the what.
Yeah.
And it's not about that. It's about the why you do those things, why you do those behaviors. And that takes a lot of inner reflection and a lot of inner work for people to be able to look at themselves in that way. One thing I'll hear people say a lot about the Enneagram is like, it seems like it just focuses on kind of the negative, aspects of my personality. And some writings do. However, that's not really the intent of it, but you also have to be able to look at yourself and say, gosh, why do I act this way? Or why do I behave this way in this type of situation, or within this relationship?
Yes.
And the Enneagram can help with that. And we are by no means today going to get into all the different layers of the Enneagram. We'll talk about the 3s generally, and we'll talk about stress and growth. But there's so much to the Enneagram that really can help you unlock different parts of yourself. It helps to see yourself, I think, in a more compassionate way. And I think for threes especially, that's really important because I feel like a lot of threes tend to just be focused on, what am I doing? Am I the best at it? Am I accomplished? It's the things you're doing instead of, can I just be who I am and will people love and care for me for just being myself
Right.
without all of the other things that are attached to that? And can I love myself for just who I am?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if you see that play out in your life at all, but I know other threes that, it's kind of a struggle sometimes to be able to say, I love me, I love myself and others can love me just for me.
Well, I think when you place the label on a three, which is the successful achiever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it's a lot of pressure,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
but I remember at such an early age, I wanted to be successful. And I didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
Well, does being successful mean you have multi-millions of dollars? Does it mean
awards or
awards?
accolades
Yeah,
or praise
the
or
best
all
at
of that?
something? Like what
Right.
what does success mean? And I don't know if anybody can answer that because success means different things for different people, as it should.
Yeah.
But the second I turned 14 years old, and here in Iowa, that was the legal age. I think it's still the legal age you can work, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And so I got a job as a dishwasher, and then all of a sudden, you get a paycheck, and I was working 2 jobs, and I was working 3 jobs, and I was very, very driven by not just the paycheck, because back then the paycheck wasn't very big paycheck, but there was something to be said for, okay, I put in the work, I'm rewarded for that work. Where can I take this?
Right. What can I do with it?
And the things that you're learning at such a young age, the people that you're meeting at such a young age, because when you are the lowest person on the totem pole as like a dishwasher,
Right.
you're seeing the owner of the restaurant come in. You're seeing the chefs. I was in the food and beverage industry when I was very young. Again, dishwasher, line cook. But I was so fascinated by the hierarchy, right? Like just how you could progress.
Yeah.
And I remember telling myself as a dishwasher, I want to work my way up to a line cook. And I think I know how to do that if I can be trainable and coachable and say the right things to the right people and ask the right questions and be personable and conversational. And that worked out really well for me. And I think that just kind of escalated to a point where it's like, oh, well, this is kind of like the key to life for me. Like if you can be, if you can possess certain traits in your life, that's how you become successful.
It can unlock a lot of doors and create a lot of pathways for things that you want to, accomplish or do or set out to do. And there's a goal there and you want to do that and you learn through different experiences and actions and behaviors and communications, how to do that and to be good at doing that.
Yes. It became very templative for me. And to this day, as we sit here, right now, I still think it's very templative. I think the path to success is very templative. Now, there's things that you can't control, but there are so many things you can control. And as a 3, when I see other individuals not controlling what they can control, it's very, very frustrating and almost impossible for a 3 to tolerate that behavior.
Right. Well, and that kind of leads me into my next question is, one of the things I love about 3s is that many times they see the potential in other people even more so than the person might even see within themselves. And 3s will be one of your biggest cheerleaders. If you come to a 3 and you're like, hey, I really want to pursue this as a career or another degree in education, or I want to do this, or I want to start my own business, or whatever it is, 3s will help you and cheer you on and be your biggest advocate and fan, Do you resonate with that? And if so, how does that play out for you in terms of the way you kind of navigate the world? And, you mentioned when you see the people with the potential you can see and they don't see it and they don't do anything with it.
Oh my gosh, that resonates deeper than I think anybody realizes. And I would be so curious if there's any threes listening right now, what that statement that Nikki just said, like what that means to them, because I've had to reel it in a lot, because I was in a position, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago where I was managing a decent amount of people. And it was a unique situation because some of those individuals were doing this, some of the individuals were doing that. Like they weren't all doing the same thing, but we were also in the midst of building a business with a business model that's never been done before, which that's so unbelievably exciting because you're searching for the blueprint, you're searching for the template, and you're trying to find success in something that hasn't been done before. And that's really, really exciting. And you want everybody on board, right? You want everybody to share in that excitement and that passion and that desire. But the reality is not all of them do. And as a three, that is so hard to understand. And where it went for me was resentment and anger and frustration. And I would spend so much of my energy and time really just stewing over the fact that, like, why is this individual not trying to achieve greatness? Why don't they see that in themselves? Why are they doing this when they should be doing that? And so managing people, quote unquote, is really, really hard for me. Coaching somebody who comes to me and says, Riley, this is what I want to do. Can you help me get there? Those are very dangerous words, because be careful what you wish for. I mean, I will go all in on you if you're willing to go all in on yourself.
Right.
But you come to find it's very, very, very rare to find somebody that wants to go all in because it's scary, it's uncomfortable, it takes time, it's grit, determination. I mean, it's hard. I love that. I love being told no and doors being slammed in my face. And if it's cold calling and having to walk into a room full of 15, 20 people that you never, like, I thrive on that. A lot of people don't.
No.
But for me, there's just something, and I don't know what it is or why, but there's just something so like tribal about that for me. Like that's what
gets you going.
Gets me going.
Absolutely. And I love that. And like I said, I think that's a great quality that threes have. But as you said, you almost have to kind of prepare yourself a little bit to be disappointed, because even when someone comes to you on their own, they might think they know what they want, or they think they're ready, and they may not be. And so they don't kind of respond in the way that you as a three would respond, right? So a three would be like, yeah, I'm all in, I'm doing this, nothing can stop me, I'm going to accomplish said goal, and I'm going to make it happen. And other people are not probably going to come at it with the same level of enthusiasm and excitement as you stated. And that's really difficult. That's really difficult.
It's confusing for a three. It's really confusing.
Why would you not want to climb this ladder or do this great thing? Or for sure.
If I'm around somebody and I sense greatness in them, with whatever it is, if it's greatness in sales and, oh my gosh, you're so great at establishing relationships, or you're so great at this and you're so great at that. I would say it's very different today than it was even 2-3 years ago, where I would spend hours with them talking about what a plan. Hey, have you thought about this? And you could do this and this. And it's almost overwhelming for them.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize, the way that I'm approaching these individuals probably is intimidating and overwhelming.
Yeah, they might feel a little like, oh my gosh, what have I just walked in? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but yeah, you almost have to kind of change your approach based on the person, if they can handle. If you're talking to another three, you might get the same response, but someone else could respond completely differently.
Threes love when you trust their process.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
I
use
could see that.
a friend of mine and a fellow wedding DJ that's relatively new to the wedding industry, Dave and Titus. He helps us out with our podcast,
Yeah.
the Aisle Trials podcast. Shameless
Yeah.
plug. Check
Shameless
us out on
plug. Isle
YouTube.
Trials podcast. I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah,
It's
thank
great.
you.
It's
Thank you.
hilarious.
Davin, I met Davin through a mutual friend, and Davin had some club DJing experience. He randomly helped me out with the wedding ceremony. I was officiating a ceremony. He was there running the music, and I could tell there was something about Davin that I really liked. There was something special about him. He seemed to have a lot of self-awareness, social awareness. He was early. He was dressed nice, looked good, just carried himself in a way that I was really impressed with at his age.
Yeah.
And he ended up, unfortunately, he moved to Chicago, and I'm like, oh man, well, I can't do much for him here locally if he's going to move to Chicago. And then he ended up moving back.
Yeah.
And so he approached me. And again, this is
Watch
music to a
out.
threes
Yeah.
ear,
You're
baby.
like, come on.
And he came to me
Bring
and he
it.
said, Riley, I want to get into the wedding industry as a DJ. Can you help me? Can you train me? I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get to a place where I'm successful in this industry. And it's like, oh my gosh,
Game
buckle
on,
up. Let's go,
brother.
man.
Let's
You
go.
have no idea.
Get your Ric Flair.
That's music to my
robe on,
ears.
right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. The Ric Flair speech promo,
Woo.
I cut a promo in real time. And you cut to today. And this is, by the way, for the people listening, this is not me tooting my own horn by any means, but he's doing 50 some weddings a year.
Yeah.
He's crushing it.
Very
Great
much
reviews.
in demand.
And as much as I would love to sit here and say, oh, that's all thanks to me and the training by Riley Mullane.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he's a guy that trusted the process.
Mm-hmm.
He listened. He possesses his own great qualities and attributes, but he believed in himself and he believed in the things that I was telling him.
Right.
And he was willing to execute the game plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's what life is
a magic
about, like
combination right
executing the
there.
freaking game plan. I mean, how
Yeah.
many people fall off on their New Year's resolution or
Quit day, I think someone told me is like January 10th.
yeah, it kills me.
Or
It kills
something
me.
like
Like
that,
I just
something ridiculous.
I don't understand. I'll never understand that mentality, and it's probably not for me to understand. But it's like I said earlier at the start of this, I don't have any energy for those that don't believe in themselves. Like it's like I'm so turned off by negativity. I'm turned off by self-doubt. I'm really turned off by like somebody that always plays the victim. Like it makes my stomach hurt. I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh, I
Right.
need to get
don't
out of
need
here.
that
I
in my
don't
life.
want to be around you. It's like repulsive.
Right.
As brutal as that sounds, it's
Right.
repulsive to
Well-
be around people that aren't
Yeah.
willing to do the work.
And I think it's okay to have, like, if you're starting something new, like when David came to you, if he was a little fearful, like if he's like, I have a little bit of, fear, apprehension with this, like, I think that's okay. But I think in your mind, it's like, push through it anyway. Like, do it scared.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's okay to be scared. There's nothing wrong with having a little fear about starting something new, whatever that is, but do it a little bit scared.
Yeah.
And yeah, your first few weddings you might look back on those years from now and be like, oh, that was terrible, but you still did it.
Yes. Yes.
You did it fearful. You did it a little afraid.
I'm so like excited and feel very blessed when I can look at somebody and I was there to witness their journey.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Another quick, like real quick story. David Schulte, another DJ.
Mm-hmm.
I would host this gala at in this massive hotel bar, like 700 and some people, and I was the MC for this event year after year. And it's a lot of pressure, but again, I thrived on being front and center. It wasn't an ego thing. I love controlling and curating the experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was the year where COVID was running, all over the place, running rampant. And I got COVID and I couldn't do the event. And so I reached out to David Schulte, who had some radio experience. He was in the world of wedding DJing. He was doing his thing. He's off killing it right now too. Said, hey man, I mean, I'm talking, this was like the day before, maybe a day or 2 days before, maybe, but I know it wasn't any shorter than 2 days before.
Oh, wow.
I said, I can't do this event, man. You can do this. Can you step up and do this? And he did it. and he
Wow.
did it. And
Wow.
like, I still think about how proud I am of him for
Right.
doing that. And
Right.
I'm sure he was
Really
scared, but
scared.
like,
Yeah. Like,
but
oh
like,
my gosh, what am I doing?
but I
Yeah.
also love I love putting people in that position, not to intentionally make them scared, nervous, or
Right.
anxious. That's not what I'm saying. But like,
Right.
I know when you come out on the other side, like, this might as well have been 5 years experience for you that you just got in
Right.
3 hours.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what makes
Right. And
threes
again, I
thrive.
think that's the three really being able to, as much as threes get this rap of they're all about kind of themselves wanting to be in the limelight, I think threes just as much when you're in a healthy place, you love to see other people succeed as well and whatever they're pursuing. And again, like I said, you will be the biggest cheerleader, the biggest fan, the biggest advocate. And again, I love that about, having a three in your life for sure. On the other side of the coin, though, sometimes threes can shapeshift. And it's not a bad thing necessarily, but it kind of ties back to the core weakness of deceit in that you can go into any situation, whether it's a room of CEOs or a room of whomever, and you can transform almost or shift into their manner of speaking. You can look how they look. You can behave how they behave because you want to be seen as part of that group. Have you ever experienced that? Do you think that applies to you, or that you do this as a three?
Absolutely. This reminds me, this was like 2018. I had an idea that actually kind of came to fruition, actually, without going into a ton of detail. But I had this idea of wedding venue, being a wedding venue consultant, right? And so, a good friend of mine, Jordan Montgomery, shout out to Jordan. He's been a huge part of my life professionally and even personally.
Amazing guy.
So I pitched him this idea. He's like, dude, I love this. He said, have you ever done a focus group before? And I said, no. The only focus group I've heard of is when they put out like a new sitcom and they bring in a focus group and they tell you what they liked about it. And we laughed at this part. We don't like this actor or actress.
Yeah.
He's like, no, this focus group is, we bring in the heaviest hitters in the corridor. Excuse me. And you pitch your idea and they're going to give you feedback. Do you want to do it? He goes, I'll set it up for you if you want to do it. Which, how cool was that of him, by the way?
Awesome.
Because that took him forever. He brought in, I'm telling you, it was the third floor of this bank in this huge executive conference room. And it's probably 20 people. And when I don't have a college degree, by the way. So I walk in this room and everybody there not only has a college degree, most of them have a master's of business or just, I'm talking vice president of banks and business owners and heavy hitters. Now, most people would walk in that room and be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Right.
Hell no.
No, I don't see you doing that. Yeah.
Because when I walked in there, it's not, again, I always reiterate, it's not a matter of ego or self-gratification or look at me, I can't wait to show you what I can do. There is a level of like, let me show you what I can do. But I look at all of these individuals that were in the room. None of them are better than me. Like, we can be equal, but none of you are, just because you do this, and this, or you make this, and this, and you've done, that doesn't make you better than me.
Right. They didn't have your background, your experience, your knowledge of the wedding industry. They could maybe talk about banking or financial consulting or some other area, but not what you were going to talk about.
And so I pitched for probably 45 minutes. It was just me for 45 minutes. I had some slides, and did I know what I was doing? I mean, some would argue maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I was very proud of how it went. The feedback was incredible. The people that I met and still communicate with to this day, shout out to Brandon Riley, by the way, Van Meter. He wrote like a 2-page, like just one of the sweetest human beings ever. And so I say all of that to say, like, if you're not willing to put yourself in those positions, that's hard for me to understand too, because that's how you get to be better. And you can look at your weaknesses, because as a 3, I love to examine all my weaknesses. I love to examine my vulnerabilities. And you're able to do those things in a more precise manner when you're around individuals that have nothing to do with the things that maybe you're doing.
Right.
Because you'll learn from somebody who owns 7 hotels when you're in a room with them.
Absolutely.
Or somebody who's been waiting tables for 35 years. You're going to learn something from them.
Yeah.
So I try to get on their level,
right?
Whether that's having to go down or up. and learn and be a sponge and focus on what they're saying and the takeaways. I really thrive on that. So
you see that playing out in different scenarios and situations and that sort of thing.
And that's not anything that's manipulative. You know, I think threes could be very manipulative. I think an unhealthy
if they're
three could
unhealthy,
be very manipulative.
they could be, again, that deceit, that whole thing about deceit, because they're not just fooling the people in the room, they're fooling themselves.
Absolutely.
If they come at it from an unhealthy place, but when it's a healthy, like you said, a healthy place, there's learning to be had. There's new connections to be made. It's a great thing. It's a thing you're happy to do because there's so much opportunity there for who knows what could someday.
Yes.
It might not happen that day, but it could happen in a year or 2 years, whatever, you know.
I think threes can get so blinded by their passion that it starts to
This kind of clouds their intent or their what they're there for.
Your passion outweighs your logic sometimes, you know?
Yep, for sure, for sure. Well, let's talk about stress and growth a little bit. We've kind of alluded to it a little bit. Each type goes towards a different number in stress and a different number in growth. And again, I won't go down the rabbit hole on this, but in stress, threes move towards the unhealthy traits of a type 9. And so I'm going to read what those are. They move to average or unhealthy type 9 traits in stress. So it's how you might think or feel or behave. So see if any of these resonate for you.
Okay.
You suddenly shut down, becoming disengaged, apathetic, and passive. You remain busy to avoid looking lazy, even if you're not able to focus. You withdraw, maybe even become depressed, losing interest in accomplishing. You want to be left alone and not bothered. You might numb out by watching TV, playing video games, shopping, eating, drinking. We can talk about that if you're comfortable with that a little bit.
Of course.
And you might stubbornly resist help from others or even hearing that you need help. So,
I mean, yes to all
those. Yeah, I was going to say, share a little bit about that. I can definitely say I've seen you in the past, not recently, but in some of those meetings that we would be in with folks, watching you, hearing people behave in a certain manner that I knew you would find frustrating. And I literally watch you kind of shut down right there. Like you're out, like you're done with this conversation. But tell me how I've just something I've observed, but tell me how you've noticed those unhealthy, and these are unhealthy traits of a 9. Okay. So if you're a 9 and you're listening, these are your unhealthy. Okay. So no offense to 9s out there, but that's just where 3s go when they're not aligned or unhealthy or stressed or overwhelmed.
Healthy 9s are some of the best individuals to be around, by the way. I love a healthy 9.
Love a type 9.
I mean, again, I would agree with everything that you just said to a T. I become disengaged. I become quiet. My wife, Melissa, she sees that and she calls me out on that a lot. And it makes her very upset when, she just thinks that I can be moody. And I can be moody. But if I'm moody or if I'm disengaged or I want to be left alone, it's typically because I just need time to think and to digest. And what's so hard for me, again, I would say even more so today as we sit here, to go into certain establishments, whether it's a hotel lobby, a restaurant, I mean, just anywhere that a normal person would go into to grab a coffee, like whatever. I have a very, I don't know if it would be unhealthy, but I have this trait where I become very hyper aware of seeing all of the inefficiencies. And it takes almost all of the joy away from what could be the most mundane thing or mundane tasks. Like Melissa and I could walk into a restaurant together, right? And we sit down and it takes the server X number of minutes to get us our water or to greet us. And it's like, I I have a really hard time like biting my tongue and not saying something to Melissa. Like, I mean, we walked right past a hostess and she didn't greet us.
It's about their performance.
Yes.
You're not seeing them perform to the standard that they should be.
Or the music sucks in here. And why are we seated 6 inches from another couple when there's 2 other seats there? Or, you know, the lighting temperature in here is terrible. Or, you know, so I can get negative very, very quickly. But at the heart of what I'm trying to do, it's like, I wish I could gather everybody around and say, hey guys, like, here's some things that I've witnessed. Can I come back on Monday for like 4 hours and I can help you? Like,
I'm going to help you become the best that you can be.
Yeah, because I want this restaurant to be the best. Like, I want you guys to kill it and make millions of dollars a year and have great quality. Like, that's what I want from you. I'm not, it's not coming from a place of negativity. It's just, I can't sit and just be like, okay, I guess this
you don't want to be mediocre.
Is. Yeah.
A 3, again, the whole thing for a 3 is you don't want to be mediocre. You want to be admired and successful and valuable, right? And so you see that you want that for other people too. And some people, that is just not their priority. And it doesn't mean in their own world they're not successful, but in your eyes, it's thumbs down.
Yes,
not good.
It's like if you're going to spend your life, any segment of time that you're spending being a part of a restaurant or being the front desk person at a hotel, like, why are you not doing this to the best of your ability? Again, it comes like if I recognize laziness, if I recognize things that you're doing at a subpar level, it just puts me in this mood where I'm like, you're wasting your life. What are you doing? How do you not see the forest through the trees right now? And what I have to be very careful of is who I say those things around, because if I say it around my wife, she'll call me out every time. And it really makes her upset too, because we were, it was a very rare occurrence where I didn't have a wedding on New Year's Eve. And so we were home with the kids and Ryan Seacrest, who I love. I think he is truly one of the best hosts and MCs. Like, he's just an absolute monster at what he does. And all I was doing, it was Melissa and I and the kids. We were on the couch hanging out. And I said, pay attention to how Ryan Seacrest, pay attention to his cadence on how he says things and when he pauses and he puts his emphasis on certain words. And to me, it was like a very fast, like, just check, like, look how good he is. And she was like, why do you critique and judge every little, like, why can't we just sit here and enjoy this? I was like, no. I want you to, but like, I want to show you and explain to you why you're enjoying this. She's like, well, I don't want to know why. I'm just enjoying this. So
it's a good example.
I've had to work on that a lot, and I'm still terrible at it because it's just so integrated into my DNA to
it's like who you are.
If I see something, if I see greatness, all I want to do is talk about it. If I see poor quality of work, all I want to do is correct it.
I want to fix that. Exactly. I love that. Well, thank you for being honest about that, because again, I think part of the beauty of the Enneagram is it does help us to see our vulnerabilities a little bit and address them and face them. And I think that's important. We all can just continue to strive to be the best version of ourselves. And that's, again, looking at those where you kind of go in stress can be a first step to doing that. On the other side of the coin, though, 3s in growth move towards the healthy side of a type 6. So let me read about what that looks like. And again, this is growth in a type 3. You're moving to the healthy side of a type 6. So you find rest in knowing that the things of this world can be yours. So and it doesn't have to be from you, can be from whether it's your higher power, if you believe in God or whatever, those can be yours. You become less competitive and more cooperative, more collaborative. You become more loyal and focused on the well-being of others. You shift to a team player mindset, using your talents to help and promote others. You ask for help and advice. You become more vulnerable and reveal who you are behind any achieving masks. So again, these are when 3s are in a healthy, aligned place. And again, growth is something that I think we're all striving towards. We may never get to the pinnacle of growth, but it's something we can all kind of keep in front of us. Do you see any of that playing out for you in your life when you're in a particularly healthy place?
Absolutely. And I find myself in a very healthy place with my kids. And I see some future struggle happening with my kids too, because as I stated, as this podcast was starting, I have a son and a daughter, and they're twins, and they are very, very different. Asher, my son, he is me.
Yeah.
I mean, he is me. He becomes obsessed about learning things, and he won't stop until he learns them. He has found his passion in jujitsu, and he's really darn good at it. I'm not just saying that like as his dad, he has
As
it.
a natural gift for that. Yeah.
And not only as his dad, but again, as a 3, it's like, okay, well, son, you have it. Now let's go, man. Let's
Pursue
press
it
on
to
the
the
gas.
fullest,
And
yeah.
he responds very well to that. Now, again, I have enough awareness not to be that overzealous dad where we're going to work out 8 hours a day and I don't
Right.
care if you're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy, but I show him the best of the best, like on YouTube, like check out Gordon Ryan and check out this person and that person.
Yeah.
And check out this, like, here's what it takes to get there. Now, Isla, my daughter, who I love so very much, she's my little sweet little wildflower. She hasn't really found her passion yet. But with Isla, she's an incredible conversationalist for her age. She has incredible social awareness. She has great intuition, judge of character. Like she's very wise beyond her years in regards to just how the world works. And to me, that's kind of like a slow simmer right now. Like I'm just trying to kind of figure out where she can take that. And so I have really great conversations with both of them, but they're very different. But what I say all that because my son, as like I said, is he's like a mirror image of me. He has addictive qualities, and I very much have addictive qualities that can spiral very quickly. That's why I had to quit drinking about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was getting to a point where it was becoming a problem. And I think healthy 3s can see, okay, if I keep going with this, is this going to be for better or worse? Oh, well, this is going to be for worse, and it's going to be even worse than that.
Yeah.
And I would see my kids or I would hear my kids make comments like, man, Daddy, you drink a lot of beer or whatever. And it really scared me. And so I cut it out, and it was the best decision I've personally made ever in my life. I mean, there's just no comparison to what life is like on the other side of that. I'm just very thankful it didn't get to a point where I'm very thankful that it wasn't like this brutal rock bottom.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
But a big reason why I quit was because I knew my kids were watching, and obviously for the betterment of our marriage as well. But I think, again, I'm always so fascinated, like how other 3s are going to respond to this. Like I'm really hopeful that some of these things will resonate with them. But I think with 3s, if we encounter negative habits, we're pretty good about putting an end to them pretty quickly. We don't, because we know that this will,
might preclude you from achieving. It might stop you from, if it gets out of hand, it could stop you from doing the things you want to do and what you want to accomplish and how you want to be perceived by other people. Potentially, depending on what the habit is or the addiction or whatever.
That's exactly right. How we're perceived by, that's exactly right. So for somebody like my son, who was, I don't know, 7 at the time, maybe, who made a comment, oh, I'm not going to let you perceive your dad as this compulsive beer drinker. That ain't going to happen. I'm way better than that, son. Like, that's not going to be the picture you paint as you get older as a dad who just drank all that. Ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
Boom, done. Okay, now what? Now I go to the gym 6 days a week. I eat really well.
You're showing him some more healthy
doing.
habits.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you found, you mentioned addictive qualities with your fitness and health journey that you've been on. Have you had to kind of watch that a little bit to make sure that, because we can get addicted to things that are good. too, right? Things that are even positive, and it kind of becomes this placeholder in our life instead of kind of being who we are, authentic selves. We use, I'm going to use this over here. Do you kind of have to watch yourself there, or? I mean, I feel like you're in a healthy place with it. I'm just saying, like, is it something that's kind of always in the back of your mind? Like, oh, wow, okay, I could really go too far with this or that. And maybe it's not the exercise part, but it's anything else in your life. I mean,
you know, as a 3, my mind always goes to, you know, yeah, I've put on quite a bit of muscle mass. I would say, you know, I look a lot better than I did 2-3 years ago. But imagine what I could look like with steroids. Imagine what I could look like with TRT. Imagine if I did this. Like, my mind always goes there.
Right.
I haven't done those things. Maybe I'll do some TRT when I get a little bit older and I actually need it. But I think it's remained at a very healthy level.
Place, yeah.
I probably work out more than I need to, but the gym has become a place of refuge for me. And it's I mean, great. Obviously the science behind the dopamine and serotonin, I mean, just how great it is for you. And especially with my son, I think it's yes, I have a daughter, and of course I want to set a great example for her. But with the son, it's like, I want to raise you to be a man. I want you to be a provider for your family someday. And I want you to see your dad being in the best shape he can be in, eating the right things, looking a certain way. Like, I want you to learn and build off of the foundation that I'm building for you.
Yeah.
And I want Isla to see, hey, if, you know, you start dating and you get married, like, I want you to see the standards that I'm setting for myself and to be the best version of myself for your mom, that when you find somebody, that you're not compromising on anything. So there is kind of this challenge to myself. Like, I'm not being the best version of myself just for me. It's, I want the people that I'm closest with to see, like, this is the discipline and consistency that I want you to have for yourself and for everybody else around you.
Right. Right. We are our children's first example of what their potential partner in life could be someday. And so it's how we treat ourselves, how we treat others in our lives. It's their first glimpse of that. It's their first example that they have to look to. So yeah, it's important. And I think it gets back to, when 3s are in a healthy place, they're less competitive, they're more collaborative and cooperative. They're looking to work with, whether it's a child or a spouse or a work colleague or whomever, they want to be in partnership with you.
Yes.
Right? They want to be with you. And again, I think you also talked about a little bit of vulnerability there with some things. And I think 3s, when you can be a little vulnerable and share, like, hey, I struggled with this, or I struggled with that, and here's how that played out for me. It shows that I'm not all just about the doing and the accomplishing and the achievement and the status. I'm a real person in here with vulnerabilities and weaknesses like anybody. And I'm willing to be open about that and sharing about that. And I think that's a really good thing. It's a very healthy thing for 3s to do with people they trust and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so I agree. I think those things absolutely show up. And again, growth is that path that we're always kind of on, and we're not going to get it right all the time. We're going to go up and down, and it's not linear. It's all over the place. And so,
yeah, 3s love to curate. They love to orchestrate certain things to the advantage of everybody else around them. So like, if my wife is stressed out about something, or my kids are stressed out about something, it's almost impossible for me. It's not a lack of empathy. That's not what I'm saying, because I sound like a psychopath when I say that. But like, it's like, I don't like, no. Do not crawl in that hole. Come here, take my hand. Let's go the other way.
Right.
And yes, there's a lot of things we can't control right now, but let's start controlling what we can control. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on that. And
you're there to walk alongside them, you know, or maybe even just give them a gentle nudge, right? And it's not, like you said, it's not, I think if anything, you talked about lack of empathy. I think that shows a tremendous amount of empathy Because the lack of empathy would be to be, well, you're in a hole, you're upset, you have this issue. I'm just going to let you lay there and languish. I think some empathy takes the form of, let me, put my hand out to you and help you.
Yes.
To come out of this. I'm here with you. I'm sitting with you in this, whatever it is, and we're going to figure it out together. I think that shows more empathy than being like, well, you screwed up. You're in the hole.
I'm not going to walk to the end of the cliff with you and then cheer you on when you jump off of it. Does that make sense? Like I'm going to choke you out, and when you regain consciousness,
figure this out.
We're going to like talk about how we're going to start.
Well, now
over.
I know why you're working out so hard, because you're afraid someday Asher is going to beat the crap out of you with his jujitsu.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm going to get into boxing. With all jokes aside, I am going to start training boxing because it's Operation Defend Yourself Against. When he turns 14, I'm telling you, I've got about 3 more years left, and again, all jokes aside, he'll be whooping me very easily. So I have to do what I got to do.
Gotta get prepared, right? I love that.
I love seeing people make progress in their lives, and I think it's this collective momentum that everybody feels. Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's nothing better than when the people around you are winning, and whatever that means,
right? Whatever that looks like for them. Yep.
Life is so much better when you are winning and you are supporting one another and you're challenging one another, and everybody's trusting that process together with like a unified front. And they're doing all of these things that you can just see this progression go in the right areas. And as a father, I am so excited and continue to be so excited watching my kids grow up and helping them with some of the struggles, especially if they get into business and entrepreneurship. Like, oh my gosh, that's going to be like, that's going to be something.
Hey kids, pull up a seat. Let's work on this together.
Let me tell you a few stories.
Yeah. And again, I think it goes back to how threes can be, your biggest cheerleader. So if you're someone who is listening and you're like, I have this great idea, I really want to try something, find a 3 and they will be honest with you, but they'll also, if it's really something you're passionate about and you want to pursue, they'll be your biggest fan, your biggest cheerleader, and they'll help you do it, even if you're a little scared, even if you're a little unsure. Maybe you don't have every skill and every tool. They'll help you figure it out. They'll help you, when I started podcasting, you sat down with me and went through a bunch of the technology, that was my biggest fear about doing it. And I'm still not great at it, but I'm learning. And yeah, you were just like, here's how you do it and here's how you do that. And it gave me the confidence, like, okay, I can do the other part. I can talk, I can come up with the ideas, but I needed help with the technology side of things. And you still answer lots of questions.
Well, the reason why I did that is because I knew you would do it. I knew you would follow through. I knew you would stay consistent, and I knew you would find a ton of success because I knew that was inside of you. And that brings me just as much joy as doing something for myself. Does that make sense? Like it's the same thing. Threes want everybody to succeed. That's they want everybody around them to win, because they don't want to be the only person that people are looking at being like, man, how did you get successful? No, we can all be. We can all be. Like, just let's talk how you do it.
Yep. Right. Exactly. That's why everybody needs a 3 in their life. Well, Riley, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're listening to this and you think you might be a 3, or you think you know someone in your life that's a 3. Riley is a wonderful example of a 3. So I will link also, you mentioned IELTS Trials. Again, shameless plug here. Riley and my sister have a amazing podcast. Even if you don't care about the wedding industry, if you just want to laugh, listen to the IELTS Trials podcast. It is funny. You guys have a great rapport with each other. It's hilarious. It's just a listen that when I listen to it, I'm just like, I know I'm going to laugh at something that you guys talk about or that you share. They basically talk about different scenarios in the wedding industry, and it's so funny. I will link the podcast in the show notes so people can check it out. Go check out the IELTS Trials podcast. Give it a follow and do that. But thanks, Riley. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, of course. The one thing I will say, number 1, I'm so proud of you. Thank you. So freaking proud of you.
Thanks.
Number 2, for anybody that is out there that is married to a 3, I'm gonna leave these parting words with all of you, and they are quiet and they shut down. Here's what I promise you. Again, if you're married to a 3, They're in deep thought. They will come out on the other side of that. Just give them time to think. Just give them a minute.
Take a pause.
Give them a minute.
Well, and to that point, I love that you say that because
it's so important to say.
Everybody needs a breather, right? And threes especially, because threes can be hard charging, ambitious, driven people. And they may even need to be reminded that they need to just take a breather. Take a pause, take a break for a second, because it can be easy to just go and not remember to take good care of yourself.
They are in deep thought about something, and I promise you, they're not trying to be a jerk. They're not trying to be.
They'll come out of it.
They will come out, but they're dealing with something right now. They're processing. It's like when your computer needs, like when you start pressing your mouse 1,000 times and things kind of like. Just everything you gotta let it load. Gotta let it load.
Give it a minute. Well, thanks again, Riley. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
You bet.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please follow the show to make sure the latest episode is on your podcast feed each week. I would greatly appreciate a rating and a 5-star review on the podcast platform you're listening on. It helps others to find the show. If there are topics you'd like me to discuss on the show, please email me at themarvelousmiddleagepodcast@gmail.com or direct message me on Instagram at Nicole Stute. Thank you for listening.